Well, in assessing sustainable behavior, it's really important first to start with what do you mean by sustainability? What is the definition of sustainability? Perhaps the easiest place to start is with the 3 R's. This is reduce, reuse, and recycle. So it's possible to say, is somebody behaving in a way that is reducing their use of, say, natural resources, or perhaps they're reusing things so they're not creating more waste, and they're recycling by transforming waste into something that's useful and it's not going to be just simply discarded. So that's how you might be able to actually assess sustainable behavior with regards to the environment. It gets a little bit more tricky when you ask the question, is this sustainable behavior from the point of view of, let's say, social sustainability or economic sustainability, in which case we have to think a little bit harder than just looking at how people utilize things, but rather we have to look at how people interact with each other. So one possible place to start is to take what we call the principle of environmental justice. This is to say that all groups in a society, and a society is a bunch of related but differentiated groups of people, do they share the burdens of environmental degradation, for example, equally, or do they share the benefits of the environment equally? So then we can start to assess behavior in terms of environmental justice and to look at the equity and the distribution of benefits and also threats from the environment and dangers from the environment. So there are different ways to assess behavior from the point of view of sustainability, depending on whether you're looking at environmental sustainability or social sustainability or indeed economic sustainability. You know, it's often said that human beings are creatures of habit, that we tend to do the same thing over and over again because it's our habit to do that sort of thing. But it's actually possible to change our habits and have new habits and new patterns of behavior. And even in my lifetime, I can think of a number of different kinds of changes that I witnessed in my hometown where I grew up. So when I was a young guy growing up, it was very common in my hometown that people would just discard tin cans from drinks, Pepsis, whatever, colas, and throw it out the window of their cars. They were driving down the road, and this created an obvious problem of trash by the road and so forth. So in my lifetime, I remember there were campaigns, do not litter, do not throw things out of your car. That's a bad thing to do, it's a bad behavior, and gradually, over a course of maybe 10 or 15 years, it changed, and no longer do you see people throwing trash out of their car. This is a change in behavior, and it's a change for the good, and it's a change to benefit the environment and all of us. It's the environment that we all share together. So I think it's possible for people to change their behavior. That's a good question. What are the most common triggers that actually persuade people or get people to change their behavior? Actually, I think there are 3 kinds of triggers here. The first one, we can talk about knowledge and awareness, and this is that you gain knowledge that this is going to cause bad consequences, that this kind of behavior is eventually going to be harmful. I can think about smoking cigarettes as something that people didn't realize. Actually, when I was a kid, people actually thought it was helpful. It calmed your nerves, it made you a better person, and so forth and so on. And now we know, of course, that that is not true, and there's plenty of knowledge about the damage that smoking cigarettes can do to your health, and that can help persuade people not to do it. A second trigger is what we call social pressure or peer pressure, and this is what people think of you if you continue to do that, because it's not socially acceptable behavior. So eventually you don't do it because you don't want to, you want to have people like you want to have friends and so forth. So you change your behavior because what you're doing is not socially acceptable. So this is a second kind of trigger. The third trigger can actually be, let's say, economic. It's a benefit, it's incentive. You would change your behavior because you get some kind of tangible benefit from it. You save money, or you make money, or you have more, you can have a better lifestyle because you do this and so forth. So this is a cost-benefit analysis. So you have to kind of do the mental calculation. Is it better for me to do it this way or to do it that way? So this is 3 triggers that can happen in a society and among individuals to get them to change their behavior. As we just mentioned, of course, no behavioral pattern is permanent. It can always change. The issue is this, as was mentioned, whether or not there needs to be constant reinforcement. I think to a point, yes, there needs to be reinforcement from the different triggers to say, yes, this is doing the right thing, either because you know it's the right thing, you believe it's the right thing, and your belief stays constant, or because people reinforce it by saying, yeah, that's a good thing, we all do it this way, this is the way people should do something. And then also, do you get a benefit, a tangible benefit that you can actually realize from behaving this way? So as long as the enabling environment for a change in behavior exists, then there can be, that new pattern can persist. Once the environment changes, whether it be from a point of view of knowledge or belief, or from a point of view of other people and how they view your behavior, or from the point of view of the cost benefits, it might change. So as long as you keep that enabling environment to reinforce that behavior will persist. It's also an excellent question. How can we plan people's behavior? That is not an easy thing to do. People's behavior is, generally speaking, pretty unpredictable. Although there are broad patterns, I would start, in terms of city planners and developers, I'd start with the built environment, the designed environment. You can, for example, encourage the development of a feeling of community by providing common spaces where people can interact as a community. We have some good examples actually here in the Sustainable City of the design spaces where people can interact and where they can actually establish relationships and talk about their shared experiences living here and so forth and so on. In terms of developing a culture of sustainability from a situation where people don't have a shared culture, which is often the case in newly developed communities, you get people coming from lots of different backgrounds and cultures and so forth and sharing a common living space. That is I would say it's part of what anthropologists would call a process of enculturation, which is to say, you develop a shared knowledge, you develop a shared understanding of the 3 triggers, as I mentioned, and then you pass that on to the next generation. That's enculturation. So there are many ways of doing this. You can do it the formal way, which is through training and education. And in fact, many planners include information classes or training courses for staff, or they have curriculum in the school. If there's a community school, you include sustainability, for example, in the school curriculum for the younger generation. And also you can do this informally through communication. And this is building a sense of community and shared values among the people living here, so that when new people come and they make friends and they interact, they pick up this culture of sustainability.